The badge scanner blinked red twice before emitting a dull warning tone. I tried again, slower this time, pressing the plastic card flat against the glass like I had done every weekday for 6 years. Red again. The security guard beside me shifted his weight, cleared his throat, and avoided eye contact. That was the moment I understood something was very wrong. "Ms. Carter," he said quietly, as if volume alone could soften the blow, "I'm going to need you to step away from the door." I looked past him at the lobby I had helped design, the marble floor I had walked across thousands of times, the digital wall displaying our company's stock price climbing steadily upward, the employees streaming in with coffee cups and half-focused conversations about meetings and deadlines. Everything looked exactly the same. Except I no longer belonged there. "I think there's been a mistake," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "My badge worked yesterday." He nodded, the way people do when they've already been told not to argue. "I'm just following instructions." 2 more guards appeared, not aggressive, not rushed, but deliberate. "Professional. Final." "Who gave the instruction?" I asked. He hesitated just long enough to answer the question without really answering it. "Executive level." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't demand explanations. I had learned long ago that power rarely responds to emotion. Instead, I took a slow breath and asked one more question. "Am I being terminated?" Another pause. "You're being escorted out of the building." That was all. No HR meeting. No warning. No performance review. No accusation I could defend myself against. Just removal. As we walked toward the exit, my phone vibrated nonstop in my pocket. Slack messages. Emails. Missed calls. People asking why my access had suddenly disappeared from shared folders. A junior analyst whispering, "Are you okay?" My manager, silent. The glass doors slid open, and the noise of the city rushed in like reality snapping back into place. The guard handed me a cardboard box. Someone had already cleared my desk. A framed photo of my mother. A notebook filled with handwritten margin notes. A company hoodie from a retreat I had helped organize. 6 years of loyalty reduced to items that fit under one arm. "Your personal items," he said. I stepped onto the sidewalk as the doors closed behind me. Just like that, I was outside. I stood there for a moment, box pressed against my ribs, watching employees walk past me without recognizing me. Some glanced briefly, curiosity flickering across their faces, but no one stopped. Why would they? In their world, people disappeared quietly all the time. What none of them knew, what the executives upstairs desperately hoped would stay buried, was that this wasn't a random firing. It was a cover-up. And they were already too late. 6 months earlier, I had been promoted to Director of Internal Strategy. On paper, it was a reward. Higher salary. Bigger office. Executive visibility. In reality, it was access. Access to systems most employees never touched. Access to internal audits, long-term projections, cross-division financial flows. At first, everything looked normal. Aggressive growth, ambitious acquisitions, bold expansion into new markets. The kind of story investors loved. Then I noticed something small. A rounding inconsistency in a quarterly report. Barely noticeable. Easy to dismiss. Except it happened again. And again. Always in the same direction. Always just enough to improve performance metrics without triggering alarms. I flagged it internally. Quietly. Professionally. The response was immediate and smooth. "Good catch," my manager said. "Accounting complexity. Happens during rapid expansion." I accepted that explanation. Until the pattern spread. Different departments. Different regions. Same manipulation. I stopped asking questions out loud and started documenting everything. Not emotionally. Methodically. Timestamps. Version histories. Shadow reports. I built a private archive, encrypted, mirrored, and stored outside company systems. A habit I had developed years earlier after watching a whistleblower in another firm get erased almost overnight. The deeper I looked, the clearer it became. This wasn't creative accounting. This was systematic concealment. Money wasn't missing. Risk was. Entire liability structures were being hidden behind shell valuations and delayed disclosures. Debt masked as growth. Exposure pushed just far enough into the future to survive another earnings call. If revealed, the impact wouldn't be millions. It would be billions. I took my findings to the CFO first. Not accusing. Not dramatic. Just data. He listened carefully. Asked good questions. Thanked me for my diligence. And then, very calmly, said, "You don't need to worry about this anymore." A week later, my access to several databases was quietly reduced. Another week, my assistant was reassigned. Another week, my calendar filled with meaningless meetings designed to keep me busy but uninformed. That was when I knew. They weren't fixing the problem. They were isolating the person who found it. The day before I was escorted out, I received a meeting invite labeled Operational Alignment Review. No agenda. No participants listed. I didn't attend. Instead, I forwarded my entire archive to a single external address. One I trusted. Sanderson and Company. Independent auditors. Not anonymously. With my name. I went to sleep that night knowing two things were now inevitable. I would lose my job. And the truth would surface. Back on the sidewalk, clutching a box of my past, my phone finally rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Ms. Carter," a calm voice said, "this is Daniel Reed from Sanderson and Company. We received your files." I closed my eyes. "Yes," I said. "I assumed you would." There was a pause. A long one. "Are you aware," he continued slowly, "that the exposure detailed in your documentation exceeds $11 billion? I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "Yes," I said. "That's why I sent it." Another pause. "Then you should know," he said, "that as of 10 minutes ago, we initiated a full-scale external audit. Regulatory bodies have been notified. The board will be informed shortly." I looked up at the building I had just been expelled from. Executives were probably congratulating themselves. Believing they had contained the risk. They hadn't. They had accelerated it. "What happens now?" I asked. Daniel's voice hardened, not with anger, but with certainty. "Now," he said, "everything changes." By the time I reached home, the first tremor had already hit. I didn't know it yet, but while I was riding the elevator down to the street with a cardboard box in my arms, the email had gone out. Not to employees. Not to managers. Straight to the board. 12 people who controlled the company's future had just received a subject line that would haunt them for years. External audit initiated, immediate action required. I dropped the box on my kitchen table and sat down without turning on the lights. My phone buzzed again. And again. Numbers I recognized. Numbers I didn't. I ignored them all. At 9:42 a.m., my former manager called. I didn't answer. At 10:03 a.m., HR emailed me, suddenly polite, suddenly confused. "There appears to have been a misunderstanding earlier today." At 10:11 a.m., the company-wide Slack went dark. That was when I knew the damage was no longer theoretical. Inside the building, panic moved faster than any official announcement. Sanderson and Company didn't play games. When they initiated a full-scale audit, it meant two things. Frozen reporting systems and mirrored data extraction. Every server image. Every internal message. Every revision history executives assumed had been overwritten months ago. The CFO tried to stop it. He called the audit firm personally. Then he called the board chair. Then he called legal. By noon, federal regulators had been looped in, not because of a leak, not because of media pressure, but because the numbers crossed mandatory reporting thresholds. Once that line was crossed, no one could quietly undo it. At 12:17 p.m., the CEO called an emergency executive meeting. Half the leadership team didn't show up. 2 were already speaking to attorneys. 1 had turned off their phone completely. At 1:30 p.m., my phone rang again. This time, I answered. "Ms. Carter," Daniel Reed said, "we need you present." "Present where?" I asked. "Your former office," he replied. "Immediately." I almost laughed. "They escorted me out," I said. "Remember?" "Yes," he replied calmly. "That decision is now under review." When I walked back into the building, the security guard who had escorted me out earlier wouldn't meet my eyes. The badge scanner turned green. The lobby felt different. Quieter. Tighter. Conversation stopped when I passed. People weren't pretending anymore. Fear has a sound. It's the absence of noise. On the executive floor, the glass conference room was full. Not with confidence. With lawyers. I took a seat at the far end of the table. No one offered me water. No one smiled. The CEO spoke first. "We believe there may have been misinterpretations," he began. I didn't respond. Daniel slid a folder onto the table. "Let's skip interpretation," he said. "Let's talk exposure." He opened the folder. Charts. Tables. Timelines. 8 years of deferred risk. Artificial smoothing. Concealed liabilities tied to aggressive acquisitions. Every tactic designed to keep stock prices stable while pushing danger just far enough forward to avoid blame. The room went pale. "You understand," the CFO said tightly, "that releasing this information would destroy the company." Daniel looked at him without sympathy. "No," he said. "Hiding it already did." By 3 p.m., trading was halted. By 3:40 p.m., the board voted to suspend 3 executives pending investigation. By 4:15 p.m., the first journalist called. By 5 p.m., the number was public. $11. $2 billion in concealed exposure. The stock dropped so fast automated systems couldn't keep up. Employees were told to leave early. Investors demanded answers. And the same executives who had quietly ordered me escorted out that morning were now being advised not to speak without counsel. At 6:18 p.m., my former manager knocked on my apartment door. He looked smaller without the office. "We need to talk," he said. I didn't invite him in. "I warned you," I replied. He nodded. "I know. You didn't listen." He swallowed. "They told me it was handled." I held the door open just long enough to say one last thing. "Handled doesn't mean resolved," I said. "It means delayed." Then I closed it. 3 weeks later, indictments followed. Not all at once. Not dramatically. One resignation. Then another. Then subpoenas. The CEO stepped down for health reasons. The CFO vanished from public view. Civil lawsuits stacked up faster than legal teams could respond. The company survived. Barely. But it was no longer the empire it once claimed to be. As for me? I never returned to my old role. I didn't need to. Sanderson and Company offered me a position I hadn't known existed until that moment, Independent Risk Oversight Director. No internal politics. No reporting chains designed to bury truth. Just authority. And accountability. The irony wasn't lost on me. They thought removing me would silence the problem. Instead, it amplified it. They thought power meant control. They forgot it also means responsibility. And when responsibility is avoided long enough, truth doesn't knock. It breaks the door down.